So I am presenting on behalf of the Holocaust Museum Boston. My name is Dr. Nicole Freeman. I am the education director at the museum, and I am thrilled to be joining you tonight. So I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the museum, our mission, and what we have planned, and give you a little sneak peek on everything that we've been working on over the last several years. And then we are set to open at the end of this year. So we hope you can come visit us when we're open. I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation. If you could give me screen sharing permission. Yes. Thank you. Excellent. I guess since we're such a small group, how's everyone doing tonight? I should have started with that. Everyone having a good evening? Okay. Can we see my screen okay? Oh, I want to make sure that I have sound sharing on. So I'm going to stop sharing real quick and then share again. Okay. Sound sharing.
I think you were doing well.
Excellent. Thanks for joining tonight. All right. So this is the site of our new museum. We are in a very central location in downtown Boston. We are right across from Boston Common, right across from the State House, and right on the Freedom Trail. And this is such an important location, and it's something that we really incorporate into the narrative that we tell when we're talking about the history of the Holocaust and fragility of democracy, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the presentation. But as you can see from the outside of the building, we have an exposed rail car, and that was done intentionally. We want to make sure that everyone who is passing by our building, the thousands of tourists who walk by every day, can see and bear witness to the history of the Holocaust. Even if they don't even come to our museum, they can still see this history. And this is an authentic Holocaust era rail car. We installed it just last November, so a few months ago. And the construction is now building around, and we have 4 walls up. And as I said, we are set to open at the end of this year. So we have a little video that I'd love to share with you all that really gives insight into the work that we're doing and why Boston and why this work is important now. So I'm going to play this video.
Boston is a city built on courage, conviction, and the belief that every voice matters. Today, we take a historic step to confront anti-Semitism and hatred in all its forms. The Holocaust was one of humanity's darkest chapters, a time when anti-Semitism, hatred, and indifference led to the unimaginable. Holocaust Museum Boston is being built so these lessons are never forgotten, so each of us can recognize the warning signs when they rise again. This authentic Holocaust-era rail car stands as a powerful reminder of what happens when hatred goes unchecked, and the responsibility we all share to speak up when others remain silent. Inside, immersive galleries trace the rise of anti-Semitism, propaganda, and the breakdown of democratic norms, revealing how an atmosphere of hate made the Holocaust possible. Using cutting-edge technology, powerful survivor testimony, and hands-on learning experiences, visitors will explore what moral courage looks like in their own lives. This museum isn't just about history, it's about action. Holocaust Museum Boston will stand as a living classroom, empowering every visitor to confront anti-Semitism, challenge hatred, and protect the values that sustain our democracy. Opening in late 2026, it will be New England's only standalone Holocaust education museum and Boston's first major museum in more than 20 years. Our mission is clear: to examine the past, connect every lesson to the present, and prepare visitors with the moral courage to create the future. This is our moment, our responsibility, our legacy.
So let me pick up the slideshow. So I always find that video to be very powerful. It gives me chills every time I see it. So, as the video said, our mission is to examine the past, connect to the present, and it really encourage our visitors and the young students who are visiting our museum to create a better future. So, obviously, the work that we do is more important than ever with anti Semitism on the rise around the world and in our own backyard here in Massachusetts and in the United States. Holocaust survivors are getting older and no longer able to share their stories. And so the work that we're doing is really to preserve those stories, this history, and to help visitors examine the choices made by individual people during the Holocaust. So this is what the museum looks like if you cut it in the middle. We are kind of 6 floors, we're 6 stories. And so if you have been to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., the experience is similar to that, where you enter on the ground floor and then you take an elevator to the top floor, and then the exhibit spirals down to the second floor. So on the 6th floor, we have a multi-purpose space. This is where we can do programs with authors, we can do lectures. We can also divide it into 3 classrooms. So we're preparing educational programming for students and learners of all ages. It also has this gorgeous view of the State House. You can see it on the top image here. Then on the 5th floor, this is where our permanent exhibit starts. And so our permanent exhibit tells the history of the Holocaust, but we really wanted to do something different. We hear that we know that anti-Semitism is on the rise, and in the last several years, with anti-Semitism on the rise, Holocaust education has received some criticisms about, is it working? Is it successful? What can we do better? And with that in mind, we have really tried to make this museum new, interactive, and really innovative. We have thought about how we can use media to connect our visitors with the history of the Holocaust and to what they're seeing in the world today, what they might be seeing on their smartphones, on social media. And so the exhibit starts on the 5th floor and then goes down to the second floor. And in the second floor, we have a theater. You can see that down here at the very bottom image. In this theater, we also have something called Dimensions and Testimony. Some of you might have heard about this or seen this at Holocaust museums. This is done in partnership with the USC Shoah Foundation. And we have interviewed a survivor, Holocaust survivor David Schachter, who was really pivotal in getting our founders, our co-founders, Jody Kipnis and Todd Ruderman, into Holocaust education and really encouraging them to build this museum. So we were able to interview David Schachter for a week. We asked him over 1,000 questions. And with this new technology, you are able to ask David any question that you want. We've asked him 1,000 questions, and you can have a conversation in real time with his hologram. And so, as I said, with survivors passing away, this is really groundbreaking technology that allows us to continue to share their stories, even when they're no longer with us. We're also working on developing a speakers bureau. So we'll have survivors, local survivors, share their story, and also we'll have second generation, so children and also third generation grandchildren of survivors, share their family stories at the museum. One last thing before we move on, we also have here on this lower level, this lower level is also a small classroom space. So we're thinking of ways that we can engage some of the youngest learners, right? Holocaust education, it's really never too soon to start learning the building blocks of Holocaust education: kindness, respect, community, belonging. And so we're thinking of ways that we can engage students who are in later elementary school, bring them to the museum without taking them through the exhibits, but do more age appropriate activities with them on the lower level. So by the time that they get to 6th grade or 7th grade and they start reading The Diary of Anne Frank or Night by Elie Wiesel, they'll be ready and prepared to have those kind of crucial, difficult conversations. So now I'm going to take you through some of our exhibits, not all the exhibits. As I said, we are telling the history of the Holocaust in the panels, but I really want to highlight some of the things that we're doing different and also some of the media exhibits that we have here at the museum. So this is our introduction gallery. So you will enter the museum and you will take the elevator up to the fifth floor. And when you walk off the elevator, this will be the first thing that you see. And you might be thinking it doesn't look like a typical Holocaust museum. And that was done intentionally. So we wanted it to be bright, colorful, and really set in today's world, in the present moment. We really want to meet our visitors where they are today. So the visitor will be welcomed by several hosts on these panels, and they will be backlit, and they will have these several universal questions on them. Questions like, why does the Holocaust still matter today? How are our actions guided by our values? And these universal questions will really guide you through the entire museum, self-reflecting questions that you will continue to think about while you read and learn about the Holocaust, and then return at the very end. I mentioned at the very beginning that the museum is on the Freedom Trail and right across from the State House. So you'll notice in the back of this photo here, we have a window open looking out to the State House. And again, this was done intentionally because really the history of the Holocaust begins with the breakdown of democracy in the Weimar Republic and the fragility of democracy. So we really want our visitors to think about that connection and what they can do to safeguard democracy in today's world. What is their role as citizens? So, right next to that window, we have a quote here from our founders and the board, the Holocaust Legacy Foundation. And it says, from the window, we look out to Boston's Freedom Trail and the Massachusetts State House, a living reminder of the fragile promise of democracy. As we begin our journey through the Holocaust, we are called to reflect on how easily freedom can be lost and how essential it is that each generation defends it. Then from there, we have a poem by a local Massachusetts Holocaust survivor, Sonia Whites. She resettled in Peabody, Massachusetts after the war. And her poem is about come take this giant leap with me back in history. And that's how we bring people back in time to start learning about the history of the Holocaust from there. So, after you learn the definition of the Holocaust and learn the definition of anti Semitism in our museum, the next gallery is about pre war Jewish life. So it's so important for our visitors, especially students who are coming to the museum on field trips, to really understand who the Jewish people are. We don't want them to come away thinking that the Jewish people are victims, they don't have a world anymore. We really want them to understand how rich and how diverse and what a long history Jewish people have in Europe. And so this is an interactive where it's about the size of a wall, and visitors are basically stepping into a Jewish family's living room in the pre war period. So they will be able to interact with a touching on the wall with different artifacts in a Jewish family's home in 1920s Germany. They'll be able to touch on a Seder plate, learn about the Passover holiday, learn about, see different examples of books that they might have in their shelf. What are they reading? Are they reading in German or are they reading in Yiddish? What does that mean? And then after a few minutes, the wall screen will change, and then we'll transport you to a Jewish family's home in Eastern Europe. So you get to see a home in a shtetl. So you get to experience rural Jewish life in the 1920s in Poland and Eastern Europe. And so this is really a unique way for the visitors to engage hands-on. And we're really about, interactive, tactile learning. Um, we have an example here of this technology that was used in the People's House Museum. So this is the White House Museum in DC. You'll see here, we'll have just one wall. This is four walls, but in our museum, we have one wall, and you'll be able to touch, and then an object comes forward and you can learn more about the object, about how it's used, about the family who donated it. So we've worked with local families in the New England area to 3D scan some of their items that their families have. And so these artifacts will be able to be interacted with in the museum. Another innovative interactive that we have is about propaganda. So, up to this point, the visitors learned about the Weimar Republic, the Nazi rise to power, and now they really get to do a deep dive into what Nazi propaganda looked like. And what you'll notice on your screen with this interactive is that we were very intentional to make this interactive look like a smartphone. We wanted the interface to look familiar to our visitors, right? Because our mission is to examine the past and connect to the present. So, without telling the visitor what to think or how to think, we want them to start making connections on their own with what anti-Semitism was in the 30s and 40s, and maybe some of the anti-Semitism that younger students or yourself might be seeing on Facebook or on Instagram on your cell phones in today's world. So, with this multimedia interactive, it is shaped like a smartphone. And on the smartphone app are several apps. And I actually have an example here of what that looks like. So, the screen will be divided into three, and it will have these questions that will draw you in. So, this question that we see here is, how did the Nazis use media to spread hate? And it will be a touch screen. So, similar to your smartphone, you'll touch to explore, and you'll see a web of Nazi propaganda. And so, this media will have several apps, like your phone: music, art, film, calendar, the Olympics, books. And so, by clicking on one of these apps, you can see examples of Nazi propaganda. So, for example, we can click on the official Nazi anthem. You can play a clip of it. I won't press it now, but it'll give you a little clip of what the song is. We give you lyrics. It talks about the traits, us versus them, stereotyping, societal impact. And then again, the interface, next track, very similar to like Apple Music or Spotify, what we're all kind of used to on our phones. So, this is just an example of some of the innovative things we're trying to do with our technology and media in our museum to connect it to the present. And as education director, I'm really working hard to connect with local teachers. We have a teacher advisory council to get their insight on how they can use these materials in their classroom. So we want to take this and put it on iPads, bring it to students who can't come to the museum, right? We want to meet them where they are. So we're very excited about that. Another interactive that we have here is on the Nazis of Copley Square. Some of you might be familiar with this, but there was a book published a few years ago by Boston College professor Charles Gallagher, and it's called The Nazis of Copley Square. And we are working very closely with him to tell the story of what was going on in Boston right here in our backyard during the 1930s and 40s. So we have a media interactive where the visitor can learn about the Christian Front, this anti-Semitic hate group that in the 30s and 40s throughout Boston committed hate crimes, violent anti-Semitic acts. And so really visitors get to learn that the Holocaust didn't just happen, far away in Europe. It also happened in our own backyard right here. And you can see this photograph up top here with the Nazi flag. This was actually the German embassy in Boston in 1940, flying the Nazi flag for Hitler's birthday. And so really, showing people what was going on in the world during this time frame and how Americans did know, right, what was going on in Europe. Another media interactive that we have is called American Influencers. So, this is also in our gallery about America's response to the Holocaust. Again, like our propaganda interactive, it's really important for us to connect to students, to high school students, to middle schoolers. So, the interface for this interactive is very similar again to social media. So you will be able to scroll up on your phone, a motion that a lot of us are used to doing on Instagram or TikTok, and you get to learn about influencers, American influencers in the 30s and 40s. So Henry Ford, Charles Lindbergh, people who had massive platforms who spread hateful rhetoric. And so again, we have these kind of reflecting questions that relate to today. How can celebrity legitimize hate? We really want visitors to think about what's going on in today's world. Then the next gallery here is about the ghettos. And this is really a good example of how we use tactile learning. We have several facsimiles here in the museum. In addition to 80 real artifacts that we will have on opening day, we also have facsimiles or replicas of artifacts. So visitors can actually touch and hold these precious artifacts. So some of them that we have here is this milk can right here. Some of you might be familiar with the story of the Ringelblum archive or the Oneg Shabbat archive. If you're not familiar, in the Warsaw Ghetto, Emanuel Ringelblum, who is a Jewish historian, he recognized in the Warsaw Ghetto that they were living through historic times. And so he recruited a whole group of individuals in the Warsaw Ghetto to document what was going on. And they hid, newspapers, diaries, anything that they could, these primary sources. And then when they, found out that they were going to be deported, they decided that they were going to bury these documents in tin cans and also 3 milk cans. And then after the war, only 2 individuals who were part of this project survived, went back to the Warsaw Ghetto, and they were able to dig up these boxes and milk cans. Actually, 1 milk can is still missing. If you've been to the museum in DC, they have one of the milk cans there. And so we have a replica of the milk can that you will be able to touch and open. And when you open it, you'll be able to read and engage with some of the documents that were hidden in there. Another thing that's really important about this narrative that we're presenting to visitors in the museum is we also want to tell the story of Jewish resilience and Jewish resistance. So in the ghetto section, we not only talk about armed resistance with the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and the partisans, but we also talk about spiritual resistance, cultural resistance, small moments of humanity, which are so important for students to learn about. We weave personal stories throughout the entire exhibit. We have testimony in every gallery, and we have made sure to incorporate the voices and stories of local New England survivors throughout the entire exhibit. This was very important to us. As I mentioned, we have about 80 artifacts. And one of the artifacts that is one of my favorites is this teddy bear. And so this is just a really unique way that we are presenting these artifacts to visitors. So you'll see here in this window, you'll see a short film that tells the story of the teddy bear. And then while the film is finishing up, the teddy bear will appear. So the story behind the teddy bear is that a mother and her 2 children were deported to Terezin or Theresienstadt in Czechoslovakia. And she was forced by the Nazis to work in a factory building and sewing teddy bears. And right before Christmas, there was a big holiday order coming up, and she had found out that her 2 children were on the deportation list. And so she told her Nazi supervisor she couldn't fulfill the shipment unless she had her children help her. So she was able to save her children's lives twice thanks to this teddy bear. So while the story is being told, the teddy bear will slowly emerge, and it's a very powerful story. And then the survivor who owned this teddy bear, after the war, he came to Brookline and lived. So his family graciously donated this to the museum for us to display and share their story with everyone. Um, Another gallery that we have is about the Holocaust by bullets. So when most people think about the Holocaust, typically in the American mind, they think of Auschwitz, they think of the gas chambers. But we know that 2 million Jewish people, entire communities, were murdered by mass shootings, by these mobile killing squads. And so we are really fortunate as a museum, a new institution, to benefit from the moment of being able to incorporate the newest history, the newest Holocaust research being done. And so this is an example of that. We are able to devote an entire gallery to this, which most museums aren't able to do because it's newer research in the last few decades. They've had to update their exhibits. So we are working closely with the international organization Yahad and Udam, who is really at the forefront of this research. They are going into small villages in Eastern Europe and they are interviewing the last witnesses of these mass shootings. And so the interactive that we have here will allow visitors to examine the evidence, right? With Holocaust denial and distortion on the rise, we have the evidence that proves this happened. And not only do we have the evidence, it was documented by the Nazis themselves. They took meticulous documentation and evidence, and visitors will be able to explore that throughout the museum. We also have testimony here of the witnesses, the local non-Jewish population who were, bystanders or complicit in this. We also have maps throughout the museum, and they're not just kind of, static maps. They have movement, they're tactile, you can touch them, you can feel them. And what you can see here, this is this workout mirror. This is what it's called. And this will be an interactive throughout the museum called Acts of Moral Courage, where visitors are able to come face to face and meet several individuals who risked their lives to help people during the Holocaust. Most of them are righteous among the nations, but we also have Sophie Scholl, a German university student who was part of the White Rose resistance movement. We have Sugihara, who was a Japanese diplomat. He disobeyed orders in order to sign thousands of visas to help Jewish people flee Lithuania. In the middle, we have a local Massachusetts couple, the Sharps. They were part of a church group and they went over to Czechoslovakia to help Jewish refugees. Then this woman on the right here is Miep Geiss, who hid Anne Frank and her family. And then at the very end, we have Oskar Schindler. And so we have hired actors to portray these historical individuals. And so in the museum, you will be able to come face to face with these historical individuals and they will tell you their story, the choices and the difficult decisions they made to act and to do something. And at the same time, they will present to you, again, these self reflecting questions, right? When is following orders the wrong thing to do? What is our responsibility as citizens? And so, unfortunately, because Jody wasn't here to join us, but Jody did go to down to DC, we were able to film some of these acts of moral courage in the last few weeks. And so, I just want to show you one of them right now. I think this will be a little behind the scenes of exhibit filming.
Sweet. Action.
The Nazis made it easy for a mediocre businessman like me to get rich.
Camera.
I was born in Portugal in 1884, 55 years before fate forced me to.
I was arrested on my college campus and sentenced by a Nazi court for treason.
It took 28 years before I learned whether any of the Jewish.
So that's a little behind the scenes. As you had seen in the short video in the beginning, we installed a Holocaust era rail car. Visitors will have the opportunity to walk through the rail car. And as you're walking up towards the rail car, you will hear the sound of local New England survivor testimony talking about their experience of deportation. In the camps gallery, we have a memorial wall. So we're working with Yad Vashem in order to get the names. Yad Vashem recently announced a few months ago that they were able to identify 5 million of the 6 million Jewish victims, their names. And so we will have their names and their ages rotating through on this wall. And we will also have a signage saying that if you stood here and watched all of them, it would take X amount of time. And we think this is really a powerful way, this entire gallery, to bear witness to what the experiences of the victims and survivors in the camps. Also in the camps gallery, we have a replica barrack. And this is where you'll be able to hear survivor testimony. And rather than watching survivor testimony, we want you to sit down and listen. This is your opportunity to really close your eyes, listen to what they're saying, and take it all in. It should be very powerful. About 25 to 30 people can fit in here. From there, we go through liberation and displaced persons camps, and then we have a section about life afterwards. As I mentioned, we really try to highlight the stories of the local survivors in New England and their families. And so we will have a photo gallery with local survivors' family photos from the post-war period showing, revival, the huge families, the lives that they created after everything they went through. And then at the end here, we bring you to the present moment. So back to 2026. We have a short film, a media piece about anti-Semitism today. So we talk about anti-Semitism in the last 10 years. The last decade, we talk about Charlottesville, October 7th. We will have to unfortunately update it given the events of the last week or so. And then you see on the left here, we have a wall, and we bring back those universal questions that you saw at the very beginning in the introduction gallery. Why does the Holocaust still matter? And you'll see we have these 3 blank screens. These are media pieces where we will be able to put newspaper news headlines. So answering why does the Holocaust still matter today? This is the reason why. And we can update these headlines in real time. So we can update them every day, every few months, every other hour. We can update that. And then lastly, what you'll see here at the very end before you go into our action lab, the last act of moral courage is you walk up to it and you see yourself. Who will you be? So we really want the visitor to come away feeling empowered. Now they have to start thinking about who are they going to be as a human being? How will they act in the world today? And that takes us to what we're calling our action lab. This is still under design, but it kind of brings you to the present moment. And you'll see we have a photo booth. We might be the only Holocaust museum in the world to have a photo booth, but it will give you an opportunity to use social media for good. Been a lot of conversation about, how bad social media is, but you'll be able to take a photo, post a quote that resonated with you, post your thoughts about your experience at the museum. Um, you know, what will you do after visiting us? Another thing that we have here is your values. And so this will be an interactive where visitors will be able to take a short little kind of personality quiz and learn, what values guide you. So you'll be presented with 8 questions, 8 different scenarios. And an example here is a political party you regularly support has taken action that you disagree with. What do you do in response? So you have to pick one of these 4 responses. And then at the end, you'll be given 3 characteristics, 3 values that really correspond with you. And then it will also give you examples of what you can do with those characteristics. So let's say your number 1 characteristic is kindness. It will give you an example of what you can do with that. If you're kind, maybe you can invite someone to sit at your lunch table if you're a student. If you're kind, maybe you can, volunteer at a soup kitchen. So again, really wanting to end the museum visit with something in the present moment and in today's world. We want visitors to walk away feeling empowered to do something. This is the Dimensions and Testimony Theater, which I had mentioned in the beginning. So visitors will be able to just correspond and talk with the survivor, ask them any question, and the survivor hologram will answer to the best of its ability. And then lastly, this is the 6th floor, the multi-purpose room. This is where we can do different programs, and you can see this gorgeous view of the State House. And then in conclusion, these are, some of our leadership, our board of directors, our mission partners, advisory council. And this is the front of the museum. So we're set to open at the end of the year, and I'm so excited for you guys to come visit us. And I'm happy to answer any questions or any comments you all might have.
Hi, what amazing presentation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. When is the museum opening?
So we are set to open at December of this year, so a few months from now.
Well, no, it's close to home for me and incredible. I missed a little of the beginning, so tell us a little about the funding.
Sure. So we were very fortunate. We got $10 million from the state of Massachusetts. Um, we are in a capital campaign right now. I believe we are at about 75% of our goal, which is, ooh, I wish Jody here was to answer this. I think we're trying to hit 100 million for open, but we are, construction is on its way and we are in good shape to open.
Is there a cost to attend?
So we will have ticket prices. We're still having internal conversations about what those ticket prices will be. For students, we will have discounted rates for field trips coming in. As education director, it's really my goal to get as many students in the door as possible, and I don't want cost to be a limitation.
It's totally fabulous what you've put together to make it modern and
You.
relevant and show us the old world. Anyway, it's incredible. I live in Western Mass. I do have some family history that could be really interesting for you in case, you probably see my email on this sign in. Anyway, my name's Yvonne. So if you see my email, you can reach out. I have something very interesting from my great grandfather who lived in Holland. My family had come, they were in Germany and they saw the writing on the wall in the 20s, and then they moved to Holland because that was free and open and welcoming. Of course, that was taken over in 2 days. In any case, so we do have a lot of family information in case.
Yes, I'm putting my email in the chat. If you want to email me, if anyone else would like, I would love to connect with all of you. We're a small group here. If you have any personal stories, family connection, artifacts that you might want to share, would love to connect with you separately on a Zoom call later.
The Dutch community, there's so few survivors. And so
Yeah.
I'm honored to be alive and feel very blessed. But I do have cousins who are working on a book
Oh, amazing.
about how this happened.
Wow.
Anyway, so yeah, so I saw your email. I just took a screenshot of that, so that's great. And
Awesome.
I think that
Please continue. And I have a basic question that I want to ask. I would like to ask the educator, when they thought about all of the exhibits, did you think differently about what Jews would take from it and how they would interact and how non-Jews would interact with it?
That's a great question. So I know we've built this museum for everyone, and I think it's very important for our museum, right? We are not a Jewish institution. We're a history museum, but we're telling a Jewish story. And so that's really important for us. We don't want to universalize the lessons of the Holocaust. We really want to make sure that visitors, regardless of whether they're Jewish or non-Jewish, to understand who the Jewish people are, not just, them as victims. We really want visitors to come away with an understanding of pre-war Jewish life, how rich life was. And I think I'm not Jewish, but I think from some of the things that I've heard, um, I think some Jewish people, young Jewish students, also need the same education as non-Jewish students, right? With everything going on in the world today, I think this education is important regardless of who you are. Um, I don't know if that answered your question, but I think we're really trying to address
Yes, I was
everyone.
asking, when you put each exhibit together, did you ever have to pay special attention to the way a Jew is going to look to it and the way a non-Jewish person?
some
That
moments
question
where
ever come up for any of the exhibits?
yeah, I think there are some moments where we have to explain a bit more, like some of our visitors who aren't Jewish might not know if we have a reference to matzah or Passover. We have to explain a bit more for some of the visitors. But I don't know. That's a good question. Do you have any suggestions? Do you?
I will think about it, but as someone who grew up during the Second World War and
Mhm.
sat at the table with people who made it through and had numbers burned on their arm and lived through the anti-Semitism of that accompanied World War II. It is a very different experience than the next generation and the following generation had in relation to the Holocaust. And time, historical time is equally as important as historical fact because the emotional experience is very, very different. My experience is different than my children's and my grandchildren's. It is much more a cognitive experience for them than an emotional experience. And so that's the kind of thing I wondered whether you were able to come to terms with.
Absolutely. Yes, I completely understand what you're saying, and I agree. I actually think our museum is we're being built at a unique moment in history because we're being built, as you said, at a time when it it is history, but we're at a moment where so many survivors for other museums that were built, they were part of it. They were founders, right? And we're building a museum where there aren't too many survivors left. We might have visitors who come to us who might never meet a survivor. And so we are really trying to think of ways to still have that emotional experience because I think that emotion is very important, but also do it in a way that is pedagogically sound and also, keeping it relevant to today, to what's going on in the world today. But yeah, I think you bring up very interesting points. Thank you so much.
I just give you one simple example.
Yeah.
During the Second World War, we had blackouts even in school, and we had to get under our desks, Jews and non-Jews.
Yeah.
And the experience, I'd be very curious what the experience of non-Jews who went through getting under their desks during the Second World War.
Mhm.
I mean, all those were things that colored the way people view the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Some
No,
people got
absolutely.
very angry that because of the Holocaust, they had to get down and under their desk and be scared to death, and they resented it. I
Ugh.
mean, there are all kinds of different experiences that people had.
Yeah.
I don't know whether there's anybody who's watching
especially
who went through the second.
especially the second world uh, World War.
Yeah, that's what we're
I,
talking about.
I was a young kid, and I remember it.
Wow.
The memories are as strong as the numbers burned in people's arms. That's how
Mm-hmm.
strong those memories are because of the anti-Semitism and the
Yeah.
Jews and the reaction of the world, both positive and negative, toward Jews during that time.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And I really appreciate the comments and you gave me a lot to think about.
Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question or make a statement or
Um,
share anything?
I would like to ask the speaker's background. How did you come into this line of work?
Sure. Sure. So, I am originally from the North Shore in Massachusetts. I went to Salem State University for undergrad, and I studied to be a high school history teacher. And I was in my last semester of undergrad. I had never studied abroad, never traveled abroad before. I had done a lot of studying about history and secondary education, and studied a lot about World War II and the Holocaust. And I had the opportunity to do a study and travel institute for 2 weeks in Europe, where it was my first time going abroad and also visiting the camps. And that opportunity really changed me, and it really, took learning from textbooks and reading and made it, more real to me. And when I returned, I really wanted to devote my career and kind of my passion into learning more about the Holocaust and, educating people about the Holocaust, why it happened, and preventing, something like it from ever happening again. So from there, I decided to go to grad school. I got my PhD in history from Ohio State. I studied modern European history, and I wrote my dissertation on Jewish children in Poland after the Holocaust. And I was in Warsaw, Poland, on and off for about 2 years while I was doing my dissertation research and writing my dissertation. Um, and then when I graduated, I got a job as education director at the Holocaust Memorial on Miami Beach. And I helped them establish their new education center, which is actually opening this weekend. So if anyone ever goes to Miami Beach, you have to check out their memorial and their new education center. And then this opportunity came up, and I was so happy to come back home, be closer to my family, and just join this amazing project. So that's kind of my trajectory. But I feel so honored to do this work, and it's really such like a powerful and like to meet the survivors, to have been able to befriend so many survivors throughout my career so far, to learn their stories and share their stories, and to, meet descendants. It has just been such an honor to be part of this. So it's really that personal connection that I love.
Well, and it'd be interesting the way you made the secret of how you made that connection can be, I'm sure, be very useful in your work.
Yes,
It takes a lot of introspection for you to figure out what grabbed you and how it grabbed you and use
yeah,
it in.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And that story is important too, because in that story are all kinds of clues about how people get attached to the story.
Absolutely. This is, I
Anybody
really,
else?
That's
I love,
amazing. God bless you for your work and your study and bringing the world's attention. I mean, it's incredible how many people who aren't Jewish are interested in this subject. How many people who are Jewish aren't interested in this subject, and here you're doing God's work.
oh, thank you. I have
Nikki,
met,
thank you again so much for taking the time, really.
I really appreciate doing this program with you all tonight. I've loved the conversation. I love the questions. I have my email in the chat, but please reach out to me. Would love to connect with everyone offline. So thank you again.
When are you planning to open?
We are planning to open in December of this year.
Before the Jewish holidays?
Um, no, December.
Oh, December,
Yes.
at Christmas time.
Yeah, like hopefully after Hanukkah, I think.
Oh,
That's the plan. That's the
and there are going to be a lot of special activities associated with it.
Absolutely. We are going to be preparing like a month long, programming to coincide with the opening.
Well, that will be great, and we would like to know about it way in advance so we can plan some visits for people who are full-time
Absolutely.
visitors to Nantucket and maybe visitors from members who are members who live in the other states in the country.
That would be great. And before opening, we hope to do some virtual programming too. So we will definitely share that with you all.
Okay. And
Excellent.
there is
Thank you
a
so much
wonderful,
again.
Will you
Thank
be
you.
sending this Zoom recording out to the congregation and to everyone who signed up?
I've recorded it, so we plan on putting it on YouTube and then putting it on our website. So I'll alert everybody who registered once it's available so they can share it as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And Nikki, thank you again for taking the time with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye.